listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah.
Well, I pulled up this article from CNN because it's kind of an interesting story here. There's a church leader in Kenya. Her name is Patrica Sawo, or Sawo, maybe that's how you pronounce it. And she's currently an ordained minister now, but she didn't start out that way, I guess. But her religious beliefs taught her that HIV was a curse from God. And in her mind, it was a moral issue.
Right.
It was something that happened to people who were disobedient. And so she operated with that in mind, and she had always told other people that God would heal them if they prayed and asked and did penance for their sins. And that seemed to work out well for her until one day she woke up and realized that she was covered in a shingles rash. Shingles, as some of you may know, is basically chicken pox that gets reactivated in your body when something goes wrong with your immune system. And so she went in, had herself tested, and sure enough, she was HIV positive. So after that, she started to experience the kind of treatment that she had advocated against people who had HIV, and realized that her 4 years of praying were not causing her to seroconvert to negative. So after that, she's actually doing good now. She founded a center to care for people with HIV. And now it's sort of evolved into a place to care for the children of AIDS victims. So after a child is orphaned due to AIDS, they continue to care for the children there. And she's since been ordained as a minister. And I guess the reason I wanted to bring this up is that her previous views on HIV and why it happened to people were based on her religious beliefs. And so it's yet another example where someone's religious beliefs has robbed them of their ability to feel empathy for someone else. So the only way she could understand what it was like to be a victim of HIV was to get HIV herself, and that makes this a double tragedy. First of all, it's always tragic when someone has to experience HIV, but to have caused so much harm, to spread that sort of thing in a community that's already significantly burdened from this, makes this a double tragedy. So, yeah, she's doing good now, but she's basically doing what she can to clean up the mess that she helped create.
Yeah.
It's directly attributable to her religious beliefs.
And so, good job for changing your position. Kudos to you. It's unfortunate that it took the direst of circumstances to actually get somebody to change their mind.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it does demonstrate that when the evidence and the harsh nature of reality come head-to-head in strong conflict with somebody's religious beliefs, there are occasions where reality will win out for that individual.
Yeah.
And we've seen it many times before, and it's one of the reasons that we do what we do here is in the hopes that other, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of well-meaning individuals who are just misguided, who have had their entire ability to think clearly about not only what some of us would consider trivial aspects of reality, but also about morality and other things. They've had their mind so absolutely poisoned by these religious and superstitious kind of indoctrinations, or that it just cripples them. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of sad. So it's one of the reasons that we end up doing what we're doing. We've got Brandon in Dallas. How are you?
Oh, hey, Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment about African Americans and why I feel that they are more likely to be religious versus other demographics, especially white males.
Sure.
Okay, you can hear me? Okay, sorry. I'm listening to there's lag on the video.
Yeah, don't pay any attention to the video, and also this speaker's kind of loud. I'll just let the control room know, but go ahead.
Okay, now this gets a bit politically incorrect at points, but my theory is that given the options people have had in the past and the history I feel that African Americans had to, in order to survive, had to be more submissive and kind of fall into whatever's most culturally acceptable. And I think that's something that kind of gets passed down. Like, my dad's actually a very learned person. He's an engineer. He was actually a physics major, has a degree in physics and engineering, but he's still very religious just because, you know, in order to get to where he needed to be, not ruffle any feathers, he was very, disciplined with religion and was just very quiet and submissive, a very submissive guy. That's kind of my comment on that. Versus white males, I guess, you're kind of, I don't know, you just have more option to think and feel and do however you feel.
Sure, traditionally.
I mean, it's
traditionally, white males have been and for the most part continue to be the sort of privileged class in, you know, the de facto. You don't run up against much opposition in American culture, for sure.
Yeah, and I feel that, like, my generation growing up the way I do now, I don't really see the same kind of restrictions, or I don't feel like I have to be as threatened by authority as, like, my father's generation. So, I mean, I'm obviously I'm an atheist, just recently came out in the last year, and it's, you know, there's still a lot of resistance, you know, it's very awkward around a lot of my black friends and other, like, minority friends, but I find, you know, it's a lot of my white friends that feel comfortable, you know, expressing their thoughts beyond just what's the status quo and what's just in front of you, you know, the mechanics of why things are, rather than just looking at what you see, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of different groups, and it's not just, you know, African Americans or women or gays. There's a number of different groups that are going to, and not necessarily through any intentional or overt kind of sexism or racism.
Yeah, exactly. This is just an externality of way things have played out. It's just an unintended consequence of.
And the one of the best things that we can do, we've talked about this issue a number of different ways before. My take on this, by and large, is I've overcome a lot of kind of narrow-minded thinking that was grilled into me early on. And what I try to do is not care at all about the sex or color or any of those other characteristics of an individual I'm interacting with any more than I would about their hair color or whether or not they're left-handed. And it's not always the easiest thing to do, because there are real differences between men and women. There are real differences culturally between how individuals are raised, and they're going to show up and they're going to affect interaction. And the best thing that I think we can do is, by and large, strive to ignore them and focus on the fact that we are all in fact human beings with similar minds and goals and lives and things that we care about.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I mean, as I mature as a person, I find my circle of friends becoming a little more constricted. It's it's not so much space and not a whole lot of people as it used to be. Like, it's becoming a much smaller subset.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of that is, as you mature, you become less willing to compromise who you are just to keep someone as a friend, because if you have to compromise part of who you are, then they're not much of a friend.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then and that actually kind of brings me to my question. One of my best friends, super extremely intelligent, left-handed genius kind of person, but he is incredibly religious. But it's funny though, he's a very open-minded person. So he's what I think you coined this term, a functional atheist, pretty much. He does what he feels is right morally based on his own moral compass, which is informed by like the Judeo-Christian values. But I mean, I've had the conversation with him, like, okay, if you were born in China and your everything that you know is informed by that experience, wouldn't you don't you see how those two conflicting paradigms kind of make the whole thing garbage? And he never really has an answer for that, and I feel like I'm not really getting through to him, but he does see my point. It's really tough. I feel like I could kind of get him to like let go of the religious thing altogether, but it's really tough to just get through to somebody who's so close to being, he's, like you say, he's a functional atheist, but he still holds on to some things that are kind of ridiculous. Like, he'll go against some things in the Bible, but if I take the Lord's name in vain, that still bothers him. I'm like, you stand in your own way, but, it's frustrating, I guess. Yeah,
and it kind of just goes to show how indoctrination works. I mean, this idea that taking the Lord's name in vain, words have some kind of magical meaning, you know, that they can cause harm. And I mean, that's really where this whole blasphemy concept comes from, is this idea that, you know, if you use someone's name in a bad way, you would call evil spirits down on them. You know, it's really magical thinking. But it's very interesting how that, I mean, he was probably thoroughly indoctrinated as a child, and it's very difficult to let go of that.
And that's odd, because we both were, you know, very traditional conservative church background, and we both kind of evolved in our thinking to at least see other perspectives, but he's not so much acting on it as much as I am, and it's really frustrating. Yeah. But I mean, I don't want to take too much more time. I know you got a lot of callers, but no, I'm glad you guys are doing your show, and you know, it's good to get this off my chest and, you know, kind of talk to somebody about it. Well,
and I'm glad you called, because we actually got an email this week from an atheist, a black atheist, who was a little offended by one of our video clips, because I guess since we had someone call the show probably a year and a half ago asking about black atheists, and this periodically comes up. We've had a lot of people contact us and said, hey, you know, I'm African American, and I'm an atheist, and we do exist and stuff like that. But this guy was kind of offended, and he was saying, you know, why did you ask the question, why are black people so religious? And I don't actually think we've ever asked that question on the show.
Well,
I think other people have.
Yeah, there was an accusation that we had gone under the assumption that the African American community tends to be more religious than other.
I mean, nobody's sitting with the data in front of them, but I mean, as an African American, I would kind of agree with that statement. Not that necessarily validates it, but I mean, yeah, from my experience, being an African American, yes, we are more religious as a population than most. So, I mean.
Yeah, and my big kind of quandary about the whole issue is that I can't possibly put myself in their shoes and in their mind to the extent that would really be necessary. But it seems to me that if you compared the average white male with the average African American male, one of them clearly has less reason to have any interest at all in Christianity.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a bit of a puzzle.
But from your perspective, you have a more broader view.
Sure.
From someone who's African American, they're like, well, you know, yes, they see the same history, but it's through a much different context. They see it as a delivery from, you know, slavery. They don't look further back at, well, you were kind of brought into this mess and been delivered from it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, so, some people can say, oh, it's a blessing, and you can almost feel privileged that, well, look at West Africa now. It's not as good as being in America now. So yeah, you know, there's a couple generations of just some people's entire lives being just, you know, horrible.
Yeah, there's some kind of tap dancing going on.
Short-sighted.
Yeah, because a lot of things that really suck about West Africa are directly related to the number of missionaries that have gone there and dabbled in people's culture and promoted superstition over reason. You know, and that's not to discount the good things that people have done with providing medical care and feeding people and stuff like that. But you know, that comes at a cost.
So there's one other thing I wanted to get to before we let you go, and that was there was a note on here that you were asking about. You're in Dallas, and you were asking for suggestions on finding other atheists to socialize with.
Yeah, and I was kind of wondering, when you guys do get together, what's the... I just don't know, like, I don't want to just sit around and just kind of talk about, I feel this, I feel like that. You know, it's kind of like, I don't want to go to like a church type thing. I don't know. I'm just kind of wondering what that...
Then there are a couple of atheist groups in the Dallas area, including the North Texas Church of Free Thought, which is more of a church type environment. It's kind of like a free thinkers, Unitarian Universalist church, where they're building a community focusing on families in a real way rather than what Focus on the Family does. But there's a number of groups up in the Dallas area, and I'm sure that any number of them would love to have you contact them. The thing is, what goes on at these atheist meetings?
Yeah.
Well, for example, we have happy hours on Thursday, and what gets talked about on any given Thursday is entirely dependent on who shows up. There may be quite a few people sitting around bashing religions. There may be some people discussing a religion or atheism or skepticism at a sort of higher level of discussion. And the subjects may never come up. We've had discussions and debates about free will, identity, and sometimes it's just you're sitting around drinking and talking about movies and things that you enjoy doing. It's just a way to hang out with other people. And so I would suggest that anybody who is looking for an atheist group, who goes to a meeting and doesn't necessarily find it to their liking, go to a couple, because most of the groups that I've dealt with, you're going to get a different turnout at different events, and what goes on is going to vary depending on who's there and what kind of mood everybody's in. So.
Okay, and you said, what was it, North Texas?
North Texas Church of Free Thought is one of them, and then there's also the Dallas area atheists, and there's one other group up there, but I'm forgetting the name, and now they're going to kill me because, is it? Metroplex Atheists. There we go. Thank you.
And you should probably check Meetup also, because a lot of these groups, smaller groups, will post on on Meetup, and that's the only place you'll find them. But yeah, and like Matt said, kind of shop around, go to several meetings before you make up your mind about a group, because one of the things about the ACA is that we have a broad range of activities that we offer to people, and we're not trying to be all things to all people. So if you come to some ACA meetings and it's not for you, and you prefer one of the other atheist or secular groups in the Austin area, we're very happy that we have those available. Sure. Because we understand that not everyone's going to like the same thing.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, including the UU Church, the Ethical Society of Austin. But even within the ACA, there are different people and different activities, for example, at the lecture than there are at the happy hour, which is different from the dinner after the show, which is different from Godless Gamers, which is taking place tomorrow night at my place, where basically we sit around and play board games and stuff. And
I might have to come check you guys out. My brother's actually a student at UT, so I might come down there and stay with him for a weekend and maybe come meet up with you guys.
Come on down.
Sounds like a plan. And on that note, Brandon, I got to let you go because we got a shorter show and the lines are all full, but I appreciate the call.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Right, thanks.
Bye.
Let's take it. Daniel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for calling back. You called after the show to talk about something.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to go ahead and call back in. So tell us what you got going on.
Well, I wanted to tell you guys about a site that I run. It's called TalkAtheist.org. And it's similar to a service provided by the Mormon Church, where you submit your name and a question, and you get to talk one-on-one, or in the case with the Mormon Church, two-on-one with a Mormon. But my website does the same thing, except for instead of talking with a Mormon, you're in fact talking with an atheist.
Okay.
Interesting.
How do you go about settling the issue of that pretty much atheism is just one thing, and whatever any atheist believes outside of the question of the existence of God is up to the individual? I mean, it's not like we have any authority or governing body or dogma. I mean, are we rubber stamping atheists to be on the talk line, or is this just more some kind of informal counseling or something?
Yes, actually, in fact, we get that a lot. And if you look at the website, there's a disclaimer on the front page that says, just because someone in the chat says one thing doesn't mean that all atheists believe that. You're just talking to one atheist, where, in fact, other atheists could, in fact, believe other things. It says that the beliefs of the person that you're talking to is not necessarily the beliefs of TalkAtheist.org or of atheists in general.
Okay. How much, are people already making use of this, or are you just getting it off the ground now?
Actually, the site is about 3 weeks old, I believe, and we've already received coverage from people like Hamanta from friendlyatheist.com, and other people have expressed interest, including Robden Bleicher from Explosum, who's advertised our site. So we're definitely hitting it off.
Great. Well, let it go for a little while, and feel free to call back in, let us know how it's going, and what sort of response you're getting, and whether or not you've received feedback from people that have benefited from it and stuff like that. And I'll try to get a link up on Facebook or something for you.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. John in Helsinki, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. I'm an American. I live in Helsinki, but I've lived here for 15 years. I'm an atheist. I've been an atheist all my life, but my adjusting hasn't been the religious kind. It's been the sort of political kind. Well, I don't know if it's political. It's just adjusting to life in Europe. So my wife is Finnish. But I just wanted to. So I hang out at atheist sites here in Europe. So like Richard Dawkins, I guess you know him, right? And Christopher Hitchens is quite popular here as well.
Yeah.
I found your site on with a referral from Richard Dawkins' site. I guess he just noticed you last week, and he's interested in contacting you. And if he hasn't, you ought to give him a buzz.
We've already had correspondence with him.
Yeah, we got an email from him and have replied, but I got nothing to add on that yet. We'll exchange a couple more emails and find out what's going on.
Okay, cool.
But thanks for letting us know. I appreciate it.
And so I do have one question, I guess. So regarding Christopher Hitchens, who I like a lot, he has this thing about. Well, he has a great quote. He says Nietzsche said, God is dead, and Freud said God is dad. And I guess that his theory being that God is this subservient. It's sort of it's not just that it's not true, but that it fulfills a political role in society. It's like a tyrant basically, and people who are part of the flock, right, are slaves, and he considers that immoral. Which I wonder what your opinion is. Is it immoral to be subservient to a dictator, I guess? And is there any situation where it's not immoral? Like, for example, if you have a dog, right? Is it immoral to have a dog, to be the master of a dog? You know what I mean?
Well, I think we're definitely crossing lines there when we talk about humans versus dogs. Generally speaking, I'm happy to agree with him. I can think of situations where it might be morally correct to revere, admire. I can definitely think of. I have no problem with people revering others or admiring others, or being someone who has found someone who is wiser and smarter, whatever, and wants to rely on their guidance type thing. The very notion of worship I find repugnant, and the idea that there is some God being, any God being who would be deserving of anything like worship wouldn't want it.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I guess the point I'm questioning is it clear that it is an immoral thing? Like, I mean, if it's immoral to, and I guess I don't really understand the distinction between dogs. Dogs are very human.
No, they're not.
Why would it?
I have 2 dogs, okay, and they're not humans, okay.
I know they're not biologically human, but there are a lot of similarities. I mean, we're just primates, right? We're monkeys.
Yes, we are, and yes, we share some similarities with animals, especially animals that we keep as pets, for example. But as far as whether my dogs regard me as their God, I don't think they do. And I have certainly not set myself up as, the God of my dogs. I have set myself up as their pack leader, which dogs do. And so all I've done is I've taken a little bit of dog psychology and I've used it to help my dogs understand how they fit in with our household. That makes the dogs happier.
Yeah. So is being a pack leader immoral?
No. It's a normal thing for the dogs. The dogs are comfortable with their human as a pack leader.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. I agree with you. Okay.
But I do appreciate the call, John. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Wow. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Hey, Roy, in Paris?
Hello.
I apologize, but there's only like 20 seconds left, and
Okay.
there's just no way.
I'm just glad I found you once on the time here because it's after midnight.
Yeah.
So I like very much your show.
Thank you.
just watch it on YouTube.
Thanks a lot. And I'm going to have to ask you to, maybe you can call back next week an hour earlier.
I'll try.
You don't have to stay
Thank
up
you
as
very
late
much.
if you call up an hour
Good
early.
luck, guys.
Thanks, Roy.
Hi,
Appreciate it.
Jen.
Hi.
I'm a big
Thanks.
fan of all of you. So have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roy is a Christian caller from Paris who had wanted to share his opinions about God, and I actually look forward to possibly talking to him about it next week. We're pretty much out of time.
Yeah.
And boy, that
Winding
sucks. An
that
hour
down.
just goes faster and faster.
Yeah.
Or seems to. As a reminder, there will be a show next week. I'm on with, is it Tracy?
It's Tracy.
It's Tracy. So last week when I announced it was me and Tracy, it's because this show didn't even appear on the website. We don't know what happened. This is the missing show with the missing CG. And we'll be down to El Arroyo. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again next week. And normally we would put up the graphic of all the fine people, the producers in the back room, like Frank and Steve and Shelley and John.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar,
What you're talking about the Big Bang is already mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago. Who could have mentioned that?
And evolution is still called a theory. Why? Because it is not a fact.
And prove without a shadow of a doubt that every single reference in the Quran to science is absolutely, emphatically proven to be correct.